After his sudden death, I discovered 5 incredible secrets at the cabin he forbade me to enter. Sarah stood at the foot of the mountain path, her breath shaky as it curled in the crisp air. The news of her father's death had come like a sudden storm, and now it raged within her. Mixed emotions clawed at her. Sadness intertwined with an unresolved anger that she couldn't shake. This place, this cabin that he had always warned her against, was suddenly hers. She had spent years trying to win his approval, yet she felt she had earned only his disappointment. Now what remained of him felt like a heavy chain that bound her. What could she possibly find at the cabin that could change their story? With each step up the familiar trail, her internal conflict grew louder. Memories of her childhood flooded in his icy stare, whenever she dared to express a desire for something beyond his rigid expectations. Was he ever proud of her? The thought gnawed at her. Why had she buried her own dreams of being a writer beneath the weight of his ideals? As she reached the clearing, the cabin loomed before her, a dark silhouette against a blue sky, weathered by years and secrets. Before she knew it, she was pushing the creaking door open, the familiar sound echoing with uninvited familiarity. Dust cascaded from the ceiling as she stepped inside, her heart racing despite the sluggish feeling in her limbs. Memories of her father's disapproving gaze sent ripples of dread through her. What if she uncovered something that shattered her already fragile perception of him? Inside the dim light, she spotted stacks of musty books, papers forgotten in corners. The air felt thick with the weight of all they never shared. She hesitated, torn between anger and grief, before flicking on a small lamp. The faint light revealed an open desk covered with yellowed pages. An unfinished novel. Her breath caught as she read the words written in a hurried script, a raw, passionate voice hidden behind years of silence. This was a side of her father she had never known, a truth buried under his unyielding facade. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Each discovery letters exchanged with a beloved author. A journal filled with despair and hopes intensified her emotional chaos. Who was this man? With every page turned, her father's struggles became raw and real, enticing and terrifying. The weight of his expectations loomed larger as she realized that he too felt the snare of his own ambitions. Sarah's heart raced, torn between the urge to cry for the father she lost and the one who had only ever seemed like a ghost in her life. Yet, she couldn't shake the feeling of obligation. The legacy left behind felt suffocating, a stifling cloak pressed against her skin. Just as she began to map out her own future within this newfound understanding, something glimmered beneath an old floorboard. With shaking hands, she pried it loose, revealing a letter that shifted the ground beneath her feet, a revelation about her mother that promised to unravel everything she thought she knew about her family. And that moment, standing amidst the remnants of his life, Sarah could feel the quaking shift of her own reality. The suffocating question loomed. Could she truly free herself from the weight of her father's legacy while defining her own story? Or would the secrets buried here forever tether her to a past she desperately wanted to escape? Sarah felt the weight of the letter in her hands, the paper crumpling slightly as her fingers tightened around it. The secrets hidden away had always felt like shadows in her life, elusive and dangerous. What was inside could reveal not just truths about her mother, but also crack open the door to her own identity. Could she face it? Her heart raced as she unfolded the letter cautiously, every crease of the paper echoing the barriers she had built against her father's disappointments. The ink was faded, but the words seemed to pulse with energy, full of promises and heartaches. As she began to read, the room around her faded. The world outside the cabin, with its soft whispers of wind and rustling leaves, vanished, leaving only the truth of her family's past to fill the empty space. Each line deepened her understanding of her mother, a woman she barely remembered, but one whose absence had left ghostly echoes in her life. The love letters unfolded a romance woven with desire, frustration, and ultimately sorrow. Her mother had struggled, just like her father, challenging the confines of their expectations. The stark contrast between how her father spoke of his wife, and how he lived his own life was a revelation that stung far deeper than she anticipated. She found herself questioning her own choices. Had she mirrored her father's rigidity all this time? Had she stifled her own dreams just as he had? As the revelation washed over her, anger sparked within her, not just towards her father but also towards herself. Why had she allowed her dreams to be buried beneath the weight of unrealized expectations? With a renewed sense of purpose, Sarah forced herself to confront the feeling that had nagged at her: fear of failure, fear of truly standing in her own light. It was not just her father's narrative that shaped her existence. It was her own resilience that could rewrite the story. She looked around the cabin, once a prison of memories, now shifting into a sanctuary of self-discovery. The dusty books, the unfinished novel on the desk, they were gateways to understanding her father's inner turmoil. Perhaps he was never the monster she painted him to be. Instead, he was a man drowning in the same passion she longed to embrace. Could it be that they were more alike than she had ever wanted to admit? With newfound courage, Sarah sat down at the desk, overwhelmed yet invigorated. She grabbed a blank sheet of paper and began to write. Words flowed from her as if unleashed from the very depths of her soul. Each sentence was an act of rebellion against the silence that had imprisoned her for years. She was transforming pain into power, channeling the weight of her father's legacy into her own voice. As twilight descended outside, painting the cabin in dusky hues, Sarah realized that her journey had just begun. The letters and pages she had uncovered were no longer mere relics, they were maps guiding her towards the truth she needed to embrace. But as she continued to write, something deep inside her stirred, a flicker of doubt. What if the truth she was uncovering led to even darker revelations? What other secrets lay buried alongside those of her parents, waiting to surface and complicate her burgeoning identity? Determined yet anxious, Sarah knew she couldn't lose herself again. She had to face whatever else awaited her in this cabin. The path to self-discovery would demand nothing less than honesty, courage, and unyielding strength. The echoes of her parents' parallel struggles called out to her, a reminder that the shadows of the past might not be so easily dispelled. The next truth awaited, and this time she was ready to confront it boldly. Sarah paused, her pen hovering above the untouched page. The fervor that had ignited her writing dulled for a moment as the weight of her earlier revelations settled in her chest. Each word she had written was pulling her further into a labyrinth of secrets, reminiscent of the twisted roots of trees outside her window. Would digging deeper yield clarity or despair? With a shaky breath, she forced herself to pen the thumping thoughts crowding her mind. The ink glided across the paper as she wrote sentences about her dreams and the aspirations she had long buried. The act felt exhilarating yet terrifying. Confronting her truths meant dismantling the very wall that had shielded her from disappointment. Could she summon the strength to replace her father's narrative with her own? She thought back to the crates of her mother's letters she had yet to sift through. Each envelope, a potential Pandora's box, held the remnants of a woman who had faced despair, but had also fought for something beyond the confines of expectation. What had her life truly been like? The image of her mother remained a visage shrouded in ambiguity. Did she embody the same fire that flickered within Sarah? Or had she also succumbed to the oppressive pressure to conform? With purpose rekindled, Sarah stood and paced the cabin, her mind swirling. The letters had pulled her closer to her mother's essence, but simultaneously reminded her of the limiting beliefs that shaped her own life. What if she stopped mirroring her father's rigidity, and instead dared to embrace vulnerability? Instinctively, she felt an urgency to return to the letters and extract more truths. The next few hours cascaded in a blur as she bathed the cabin in light, illuminating the shadows lurking within the corners. She prepared to explore her mother's sentiments, each letter promising a pathway to understanding her lineage. Just as she decided to delve into those secrets, an uncomfortable thought struck. What if her mother's realizations mirrored her father's bitterness, making her own quest feel futile? Determined to confront that fear, Sarah opened the crate with fingers trembling yet resolute. The delicate parchment rustled softly, echoing the muted whispers of a world she barely knew. Each letter bore the imprint of her mother's heart, rich with emotion and clarity. It was time to engage with this woman who had walked a turbulent path, so similar to her own emerging journey. As Sarah read the words penned so many years ago, she found herself swaying between inspiration and trepidation. The letters detailed her mother's challenges and aspirations, moments when she had desperately sought more from life. It struck Sarah how familiar the struggles felt, yet intertwined with an unyielding spirit, a stark contrast to the rigid norms embraced by her father. The realization hit her like a wave. Her mother might have faltered in some of her battles, but she never stopped fighting. Sarah understood then that vulnerability did not equate to weakness. It was a necessary strength, allowing growth to emerge from pain. But just when the clarity felt within reach, she stumbled upon a letter that left her breathless. It contained bold revelations about deep-seated conflicts that had plagued her family. The words struck like a thunderclap against her burgeoning sense of self. Would this new information unravel the fragile tapestry she was weaving of her identity? Sarah's heart raced, the ink on the page smearing slightly as her hand trembled. The shadows of her past wrapped around her, threatening to dim the light she was beginning to foster. The momentary comprehension of her mother's strength now posed an impending challenge. Could she truly confront the disquieting truths that would redefine everything she believed about herself? The tug-of-war between fear and resolve swirled within her as she weighed her next move. She had a choice to make: would she retreat into silence or ignite the fire within to face the storm brewing on the horizon? As the sky darkened outside, each chill wind gust blowing against the cabin walls resonated with her internal conflict. Sarah sat back down, pulse racing, but she knew one thing for sure. She was on the cusp of a powerful evolution, and she had to peer into the depths of her ancestry. No matter how overwhelming it threatened to be, her fingers tightening on the letter, she steeled herself. The time had come to face what other secrets lay buried in her family's past. A confrontation with her own legacy awaited. The letter lay before Sarah, its words pulsating with a life of their own, a beacon illuminating the shadows cast by her father's unyielding expectations. Her heart raced as she contemplated the implications of the revelations. This was not merely a letter. It was a door to a past shackled by silence, and to open it could shatter the carefully constructed image she had of her family. Taking a deep breath, she summoned the courage to read on. The words unfurled tales of conflict, despair, and the relentless pursuit of dreams that had both forged and fractured her lineage. With each paragraph, Sarah felt the framework of her identity quaking. Did her mother's battles echo beyond the mere domestic? The letter spoke of secret aspirations and struggles that transcended societal norms. The hidden courage of a woman who had once dared to dream ignited a fire within Sarah, propelling her to confront her own suffocating expectations. Why had no one spoken of this? She whispered, her voice barely audible over the howling wind outside. Her throat tightened as the specter of her father loomed larger in her mind. The man who had ironclad beliefs about success had never acknowledged the complexities of desire and failure. His legacy, steeped in rigidity, now felt like chains slowly crumbling but still tethered to her. Would her own wishes be snuffed out before they bloomed into existence? Driven by new resolve, Sarah pushed back her chair and set the letter aside. She instinctively reached for a fresh piece of paper, the urge to articulate her reflections surging like a tidal wave. What had her mother desired? Why had she remained silent? Like her mother, Sarah longed to articulate her ambitions without judgment, to carve a space in the world that allowed her to explore her talents and passions freely. Was it possible to unravel her mother's story and rewrite her own simultaneously? As the ink poured from her pen, she began drafting a letter addressed to herself, a love letter, an apology, and a declaration. In it, she vowed to honor her mother's memory by embracing her true self. She recognized the battle within would not be without pain or resistance. Yet, for the first time, the thought of failing felt different. It was not the crippling downfall she had always feared. It was merely feedback on her journey toward fulfillment. She would not allow others' disappointments to extinguish her flame. Sarah paused, her mind swirling again with the deep-seated conflict. Could she face the shadow of her father while simultaneously honoring the light of her mother? As she wrote, the door to her past creaked open wider, revealing echoes of her mother's voice, encouraging, persistent. Dream, my child. Dream of a future meant for you. But then an uncomfortable twinge arose, urging her to consider what she might find out about her father. What if the rigid narrative he enforced only masked his own fears? Could the truth behind his steadfastness provide insight into her own potential limitations? The thought sent ripples of anxiety through her resolve. The exploration of her lineage now felt dual-edged. Honoring her mother while still untangling the influence of her father would demand every ounce of strength within. The moonlight filtered through the cabin windows, casting ghostly patterns on the wooden floor. Sarah's pulse quickened, a tangible reminder of her evolving courage, as she prepared to immerse herself further into the mysteries of her family. With determination, she gathered her mother's letters once more, intending to sift through each envelope to summarize, analyze, and ultimately learn from the revelations contained in those fragile pages. Every sentence could be a stepping stone toward bridging the gap between past and present. Yet, an unsettling thought crept into her consciousness. Would the unveiled truths deepen her connection to her mother's fight, or expose the painful fissures between her father's expectations and her newfound resolutions? The weight of this discovery felt insurmountable. Just as clarity began to settle, uncertainty cascaded back over her like a dark cloud. With notebooks piled around her, Sarah steeled herself for what lay ahead. The time had come to unearth every blood-soaked secret, every murky truth that could redefine her path, and in doing so, confront the fraught legacy that loomed over her. She needed to know how far she would go in starting anew. How much of her was composed of her father's rigidity, and how much reflected the malleable spirit of her mother. As she sat amidst the quiet of the cabin, an inner voice stirred with urgency. What losses would she have to face in claiming her own voice? What parts of her would she have to let go of to embrace a life of authenticity? The questions lingered in the air, heavy with expectation. The confrontation began, and Sarah could only feel one way, ready to push through the storm and emerge transformed. Sarah toyed with the edge of the final letter, her fingers trembling as she brushed the faded envelope against her palm. Each piece she had uncovered told a story, but they also whispered of shadows lingering in the corners of her family's history. The weight of unanswered questions pressed down on her, the air thick with tightly wound tension. The journey of unearthing her mother's narrative felt akin to peeling an onion. Each layer revealed tears yet birthed clarity. She couldn't shake the image of her father's stern visage from her mind. What had he suffered to forge the man he was? She needed to confront the uncomfortable truths that resided within their shared lineage. As she pulled out another letter, the ink slightly smudged, Sarah knew she was standing on the precipice of not just recalling her mother's dreams but also of questioning her father's resolve. Opening the letter, she read about a time when her mother had entertained ambitions beyond domestic life. Her aspirations had flourished under the stars, but had dimmed under societal expectations and her father's unwavering demands. Sarah felt a stirring curiosity ignite within her, a desire to know her mother's dreams fully, to understand what had pushed her to retreat. It was no longer about merely reading words. It was about painting a fuller picture from fragments of hope and despair. With a steady resolve, Sarah jotted down her mother's highlights, the brave pursuits that once characterized her spirit. She studied the literary echoes that dripped with a mix of yearning and resignation. Each phrase demanded to be understood, tooth and nail wrestling her away from the blurred distortion painted by her father over the years. Yet, it was clear the true battle lay ahead. Conjuring the courage to face her father would place her fragile resolve into the fire. She needed to confront him not simply as a daughter grappling with expectations, but as a woman ready to wrestle with the remnants of fear he had instilled. How could she reconcile the love she held for him with the resentment that gnawed at her? As she pondered these thoughts, the sun dipped low, casting a golden hue across the cabin's interior. The warmth felt nourishing, drawing her back to the task at hand. She scribbled fervently in her notebook, the letters illuminating her heart with a sharp clarity. What skills and strengths had her mother nurtured? Were they now latent within Sarah, bound by her father's chains? The distinct possibility of renewing her life's trajectory sparked a fearless determination inside her. Sarah paused, contemplating the inherent power within her name. Would she have the audacity to bear the weight of both her parents' needles, her mother's courage and her father's rigidity? Could she straddle that tense line without falling into the abyss of either expectation? Suddenly, a thought flickered like a match igniting in the dark. What if exploring her father's life could yield hidden lessons of resilience? What if, beneath the exterior of his stoic facade, was a man forged by his failures, riddled with regrets of his own choices? The notion was intoxicating. If she could extract those lessons, it could turn the tides from carrying burdens to unlocking her potential. Resolved to unravel these narratives, Sarah stood, brushing aside the letters with newfound clarity. She had an entire cabinet of files belonging to her father, kept locked beneath his rigid governance. What lay beyond that door could offer secrets that shaped both him and her. Her determination swelled within, washing any lingering hesitations away. She would confront the layers of both her parents and her truths buried deep in the archives of their collective past. With a single glance at the cabin door, Sarah felt the call to adventure surge within. The journey ahead felt demanding, though she knew clarity awaited on the other side. She took a breath, understanding that she was about to delve into the heart of her family's decisions. The potential revelations could alter her destiny once and for all. Daring to move forward, her heart thrummed with anticipation as she approached the cabinet. What insights fueled her father's choices, obscured beneath years of built-up silence? The threshold loomed as she prepared to confront the truths awaiting within the locked confines of her family's history. As Sarah stood before the cabinet, a wave of uncertainty washed over her. The wood grain felt rough against her fingertips, the reality of what lay beyond that door pressing heavily on her mind. She had spent years crafting a narrative about her father, one molded by fear and respect, but now the chance to understand the man he truly was loomed tantalizingly close. The secrets bubbling beneath the surface ignited her curiosity while sending chills racing down her spine. Taking a breath that steadied her nerves, she grasped the cabinet handle, feeling the cool metal beneath her palm. With a swift motion, she pulled it open, the hinges creaking as if they too were reluctant to share the past. Rows of assorted files greeted her, each neatly labeled yet emitting an air of indifference, shadows of lives once lived but now confined in dusty folders. Her heart raced, her mind flooded with questions. What stories would they tell? What truths would rise from the ashes of her father's carefully curated persona? As she began to sift through the papers, words like courage, sacrifice, failure, and dreams leapt off the pages, each term striking a chord deep within her. A letter caught her eye, addressed not to her father but to a long-lost friend. The fade of the ink betrayed the passage of time, yet the emotion seemed vivid, raw. She began to read, each word pulling her deeper into a well of unexpected revelations. Her father had experienced a tumultuous relationship with ambition, one that mirrored her mother's suppressed aspirations. He penned lines filled with vulnerability, exposing doubts he had never displayed outside. For the first time, Sarah glimpsed an intricate tapestry woven with both pride and despair. The facades he placed between himself and her were beginning to crack. This was a different man, one who felt suffocated beneath expectations he had imposed upon himself and those around him. With each file she examined, Sarah found reluctance turned into explosive resilience. These papers painted a man who had fought valiantly against life's currents, but had ultimately retreated into a shell, a man not unlike herself. Would it have been different had he communicated the battle within? Feelings collided as compassion wrestled with her enduring resentment. She was teetering on the brink of understanding. Noticing a small box in the corner of the cabinet, she hesitated. It exuded an allure that was almost palpable, as if it had secrets to whisper into the air. Foreboding twisted in her gut. What lay inside could keep her bound to the past. But as she moved closer, the magnetism intensified, pulling her toward the potential discoveries that might finally unlock her own self. Could the answers she sought have resided in this box all along? Her fingers danced over the latch, the weight of her decision heavy on her shoulders. Would this be a chance to reclaim the narrative of her life? To confront her father's shame with the acceptance that even strength has its limits? Sarah was aware that opening this box would not just unearth her father's history, but also her own identity. The risk felt monumental. What if it shattered the image she had built of him? With a decisive breath, her heart beat louder than the silence of the cabin. She would confront the truth in its rawest form. This was the moment of reckoning, not just for her father but for herself as well. The space between her expectations and reality began to shrink as she unlatched the box. What lay inside could reshape everything she believed about her family's legacy. The stories she sought to reclaim were mingling with her desire to rediscover her own essence. As the lid creaked open, a brief flicker of doubt tightened within her, but it dissipated quickly. She understood she had reached a threshold. It wasn't just about confronting the past, it was about daring to redefine her future. The box opened fully, revealing its contents, but the sight elicited a gasp of disbelief. Inside, Meticulously folded papers hinted at betrayals and revelations that could unravel her father's carefully constructed life. What had she just unleashed? The moment of truth teetered on the edge as the weight of potential consequences bore down on her. Her heartbeat thrummed in her ears, drowning out everything else as she realized she might have stumbled upon the answer to a question she had not yet fully formed. Could this discovery finally free them both, or would it ensnare her in the very chains she sought to escape? Sarah braced herself, aware that whatever lay ahead held the power to change everything. The sight before Sarah's eyes blurred momentarily as her mind raced to absorb the implications of what she had uncovered. The folded papers were more than mere documents. They were fragments of a life shrouded in secrecy, and with every passing heartbeat, their weight pressed down harder on her. She reached for the first sheet, her fingers trembling with anticipation. As she unfolded it, shaky breaths pulled at her lungs. The contents were a ledger not of finances, but of promises broken, dreams deferred, and relationships severed. It chronicled a life where every ambition had a toll, each decision bearing the sharp edge of regret. The names listed were unfamiliar, yet each felt like a thread pulling her closer to her father's hidden realities. Who were you really? The question echoed in her thoughts, rendering her almost breathless. Each new document lifted layers off her father's carefully constructed facade, revealing a man whom she had never truly known. In his silence, he had guarded his weaknesses as fiercely as she had once guarded her own aspirations. One document stood out, a letter dated decades ago, penned with a raw sincerity that sliced through the library of guarded emotions she'd grown accustomed to from him. It spoke of love and longing, a plea for understanding mingled with the sorrow that seeped through the ink. It wasn't merely a letter but rather a confession that wove together the very fabric of his humanity. As the words etched themselves into her mind, Sarah felt sympathy bloom for the father whose shadow loomed large over her life. What had she been so afraid of? Hadn't she built walls around her own dreams due to her father's influence? A rising tide of resolve washed over her. She could not allow his hidden truths to paralyze her any longer. The compassion filling her chest was paired with fierce determination. She needed to confront not only her father's past but her own insecurities. Sarah sifted through the papers, how each detail resonated with her own struggles. Betrayals mirrored her fears of inadequacy, ambitions echoed her own suppressed dreams, and losses illuminated every possibility she had feared to pursue. She was staring at the map of her father's heart, and in that moment something pivotal shifted within her. Moments stretched into minutes, each paper she examined teased her into deeper introspection. The revelations asked her not just to question her father's choices, but her own as well. At what point had she decided to cast aside her dreams for the comfort of expectations? Had she, too, begun to weave a narrative that excluded the fundamental truths of herself? As the sun dipped lower outside the cabin window, shadows danced eerily across the walls, echoing the tumult within her. This wasn't just about understanding her father. It was a chance to reclaim her narrative, to challenge the ghost of the man whose choices had shaped her perceptions, whose unfulfilled ambitions painted her world in shades of fear and obligation. And there it was, the echo of a question she hadn't yet voiced. What if embracing her father's vulnerabilities meant embracing her own? Could the act of understanding open a path towards rediscovery, one not just filled with walls but also with potential? Heart beating faster, Sarah found herself reaching for one last crumpled leaf, a final letter that felt heavier than the rest. As she unraveled it, the words spilled out with urgency, weaving a cautionary tale that tethered her interest to the past. Whatever this letter held might be both the closure and the confrontation she feared was destined to ignite. The final sentence clutched at her heart, a challenge that dared her to confront the shadows of their history together. The revelation would demand bravery. It was time to engage not only with her father's legacy, but to challenge the restrictions she had imposed on herself. What had started as an anxious exploration had morphed into a pivotal moment of awakening. With the letters in hand, she understood that venturing deeper into her father's hidden truths might just offer her the key to liberating her own destiny. With a new fire igniting within her, Sarah braced herself for what the next step would demand. The question loomed larger than ever. She had unearthed pieces of the past, but would she have the courage to face the truth of her present? Would the letter she held lead her to a confrontation with not just her father's legacy, but the haunting specters of her own choices? As tension rose, She knew she needed to answer them before this journey would come to its necessary crescendo. The time had come to finally bridge the gap between past and present. The crumpled letter felt as though it pulsed with an energy of its own, brimming with secrets that begged to be unmasked. As Sarah's eyes darted through the carefully scrawled words, her heart raced. It was a plea, a warning, and within it lay truths that demanded her attention. Each sentence unraveled a part of her father she had never seen, giving her a glimpse of a vulnerable man enveloped in his fears. How could she have never known? The weight of denial hung heavy in the air, and each word illuminated the regrets that were the appendages of her father's choices. "You can't trust easily," he had said. "People are not what they seem." An adage that concluded with the sting of personal experience. She never acknowledged how these wisdoms had forged chains around her own aspirations, binding her to a path of compliance. The last line of the letter etched itself into her memories. "Don't let fear dictate your decisions. The life you choose is the inheritance you leave behind." It was a call to arms, a declaration that reverberated off the walls of the cabin and into her psyche. Sarah felt the ember of determination reignite. This was her moment. She had to confront not just her father's legacy but the hesitation that had corrupted her own decisions. Rising from her seat, she took a deep breath, feeling the sensation of the wood beneath her fingers invoke a grounding steadiness. Clarity emerged as she began to plot her next step. She was not just a daughter seeking to understand her father. She was an individual ready to cut through fear, ready to stand tall amid the shadows of their shared past. Deciding to step outside, she opened the cabin door, embracing the cool air, which washed over her like a rejuvenating fog. The trees stood tall around her, morose sentinels of the secrets they housed. They were timeless, unyielding, a stark contrast to the fluidity of human emotion. Suddenly, the woods felt less claustrophobic, more like a sanctuary where she could provoke change. Determined, Sarah wandered the familiar paths, her steps steady as impulses propelled her to confront what she'd left unexamined within herself. The struggle of her past decisions weighed heavy in her mind, yet the words from the letter floated back at her like a refreshing breeze. Could she truly allow herself to embrace the narrative of liberation? The realization dawned that understanding her father also meant dismantling her own limitations. As she walked, the horizon began to shift, morphing from comforting shapes into jagged cliffs of potential. What would she confront first? Would it be her fear of stepping into the unknown, fueled by the expectations that had frazzled her mental resolve? Or would it be the challenge of facing her father, both in memory and in choice? The more she reconsidered, the more the decision felt imperative. She could either let his spirit bind her to insecurity or allow his experiences to empower her. Returning to the cabin, the world had taken on a different hue, saturated with new possibilities. On a nearby table, she noticed a dusty old journal, the remnants of her father's thoughts on the dreams he had harbored but never fulfilled. This was more than a diary. It was a vulnerable testament of his journey, and Sarah felt a pull towards it that was unavoidable. Rummaging through the pages, she unearthed notations about aspirations, some scratched out, others unfinished echoes of her own ambitions left limping in her mind. Each turn of the page was a confrontation with her father's strengths and flaws. She felt an urgent need to not only read but to respond, to voice her pursuit in relation to his. And as she penned her own thoughts beside his, she realized her path was intertwined with the man she'd only partially understood. She had the power to sculpt this legacy into something new, untethered from the chains of fear. Yet, a question loomed. If she dared to embrace this newfound empowerment, would it foster connection, or would it further deepen the chasm between them? With confounding doubts knitting themselves into her thoughts, she felt the pressure mount. This wasn't merely an exercise in understanding. It was a plea for reconciliation with her own burgeoning identity. As the sun dipped beneath the horizon, she hesitated, pen poised above the blank page, contemplating whether confronting his legacy would ignite her own potential or further obscure the differences that lay between them. The shadows lengthened, the weight of revelation looming heavy upon her. In this moment, Sarah found herself at a precipice between intergenerational fear and breaking free. Would she dare to make this leap? Or would she retreat into the safety of her previous limitations? Her breath hitched as she took in the weight of her decision, the future hanging delicately in the balance. What awaited her at the edge of this leap was unknown, but it was time to find out. The journal lay open, its pages rustling in the empty cabin, each filled with spidery letters that seemed to flicker in the dim light, demanding attention. Sarah's heart quickened at the gravity of her task. To respond to her father's dreams was to breathe new life into the fragments of his unfinished narratives. It felt liberating yet daunting. How could she integrate his silent battles with her own emerging narrative? With each word she wrote, she craved to reclaim her voice, to drown out the whispers of self-doubt that had haunted her for years. I refuse to be shackled by fear, to be a solitary shadow of your dilapidated dreams, she scribbled fervently beside his musings. As her ink flowed, she grappled with the dissonance of pride and anxiety. Was she ready to claim her own identity amidst his unfinished legacies? The cabin's solitude wrapped around her like a shroud, cultivating an atmosphere ripe for revelation. Suddenly, the reality of her isolation struck her. She thought of the relationships outside the cabin, the professional aspirations that had slipped away, dulled by years of conformity. Would her voice echo hers, or would it ring hollow if she pursued her goals? Setting her jaw, she realized this was not merely about her father. It was about carving a path for herself, a realization that was both terrifying and exhilarating. With a sharp inhale, she closed the journal, its weight now a catalyst for her change rather than a relic to be feared. This was the moment to assert herself. Stepping outside, the night air felt electric against her skin. Stars blinked above, their constellations a vivid contrast to the murky depths of her past. Each twinkling point mapped out the potential she had overlooked. As she navigated the dense underbrush, thoughts poured forth like a rushing river. Traditional ideals had kept her stagnant, entrapping her in others' expectations while denying her vibrant desires. But the urgency to break free surged through her, rippling with newfound determination. This was no longer just a reconciliation with her father's narrative. It was about manifesting her identity as an artist, an explorer, a woman unencumbered by the expectations that had crumbled her soul. Arriving at a familiar outcrop overlooking the sprawling wilderness, Sarah felt a shift. The jagged cliffs symbolized the challenges she was ready to face, but more importantly, they embodied the resilience she needed to embrace. The path ahead was unclear, yet the hesitation that often paralyzed her began to lift. She pictured herself standing at the precipice, arms wide open, as if the winds of possibility were urging her to take flight. But what would this leap entail? The echo of her father's wisdom returned, fraying the edges of her rock-solid resolve. Don't let fear dictate your decisions. A choice lay before her: confront her fears directly or remain complacent. Petitioning the silence of the night, she made the decision. She would take action in her professional life. Working as an artist in a community that valued conformity, she had buried her creativity beneath layers of explanation, always second-guessing her right to innovate. Yet the potential to create, to expose her vulnerabilities through art, triggered a longing in her spirit that demanded expression. The thrill of the unknown seeped into her bones as she returned to the cabin, climbing inside with a conviction she had never possessed before. Fear still loomed, but now it seemed smaller, like an unnecessary paperweight on the desk of her aspirations. Seizing the journal once more, she pulled from her pocket a fresh piece of paper. Boldly, she wrote a declaration of intent. I will embark on the journey of my own artistic truth. My voice matters, and I will shatter the silence that has long plagued my path. As she fastened it to a new page, the idea of exhibiting her work began to bloom in her mind, ambitious yet terrifying. Some would applaud her, others would question. But the journey was hers. A sharp chill swept through the cabin, and she paused. The shadows had not fully receded. The risks of embracing her aspirations trembled in the corners of her imagination. In that moment, an urgency flared within her. The path ahead was fraught with self-doubt, critics, and the anxiety of exposure. However, woven through this daunting tapestry was the promise of liberation. What awaited her at the exhibition, the reception of her work, and her journey toward becoming the artist she envisioned remained beyond her grasp, but she was a step closer. Would her newly unfurled voice resonate, or would it crash against a wall of skepticism nearly as imposing as her father's legacy? As she sealed the journal, her mind buzzed with questions, shadowy doubts slicing through her newfound resolve. But steeling herself, she understood this was not merely about defiance. It was about necessity. A storm of conflicting emotions brewed within her, the thrill of potential alongside the fear of failure, two sides of the same coin. With this surreal mixture of anticipation and fear coursing through her, Sarah stood on the brink again, contemplating the next leap, the leap into the world beyond the cabin, beyond her father's shadow. Would she fly or fall? The horizon promised clarity, but only if she dared to plunge into the unknown. Standing at the edge of the path where twisted roots of trees grew like old memories, Sarah inhaled deeply, feeling the weight of the mountains press behind her, urging her forward toward a future reborn. The cabin, once a fortress of secrets, now felt like a launchpad into her burgeoning identity. Each revelation unearthed had chipped away at not just her father's legacy, but at the very fears that had held her hostage for too long. With a steady resolve, she dug deeper into her father's unfinished journal, the words spilling forth stories of his ambitions, frustrations, and hidden vulnerabilities. It felt as if he was handing her the key to the father she longed to understand, but this time the understanding was mutual. Sarah wasn't merely reacting. She was actively rewriting a narrative that had stifled her both personally and professionally for years. "I refuse to allow fear to dictate my choices," she pronounced to the empty cabin, each word solidifying her decision. The art world awaited an arena where she could pour forth her experiences through her paintings, unearthing every brushstroke grounded in her parents' legacies. She saw now that she didn't have to replicate the rigidity of her father nor the resignation of her mother. She could carve out a space that embraced the full spectrum of her identity. When she returned to town, she sought the gallery spaces that once intimidated and silenced her. Armed with new work that channeled her journey of discovery, she approached curators, her heart pounding but her confidence soaring. No longer shackled by the ghosts of her upbringing, she confronted each moment with an authenticity born of the courage she had cultivated in solitude. Weeks turned into months, and finally, an opening night arrived. Her exhibition titled, "In the Shadows of Legacy." As she stood in front of her emotional landscapes and narratives woven through color and form, she felt her father's tenacity fueling her, and her mother's courage guiding her vision. Friends, strangers, and family members alike braved the gathering, and Sarah's pulse raced with anticipation. What had once seemed impossible now felt inevitable. She had transformed her pain into a display of triumph. The night unfolded, laughter mixing with conversation, connecting her with people who resonated with her journey. By the end of the evening, she not only received praise but revelatory conversations ignited with individuals who had grappled with their own legacies. It felt more than personal achievement. It felt communal, vivid, and dynamic, bridging old wounds with newfound strength. The recognition was palpable, a validation of the artistic spirit her father had quietly housed but never could express, coupled with the strength that her mother hadn't lost entirely. As the exhibit concluded and people began to leave, one art critic approached Sarah with accolades that filled her with warmth and pride. "You've demonstrated not just skill but a profound understanding of identity," he said. "Your voice comes through with clarity that many struggle to find." This affirmation of her work reflected years of internal wrestling, a testament to how she had fought to reclaim her narrative, transforming turmoil into art. With the applause still echoing around her, Sarah reflected on how far she had come. Before, she had been a girl constricted by expectation, living in the shadow of disappointment. Now she stood tall, a recognized artist who had conquered her fears and embraced her truth. The journey wasn't over, but she had achieved a profound shift within. The stories etched into her heart were hers alone to tell, crafted from the fragments of her childhood, but woven into a future of her own designing. As she cleaned up, Sarah was no longer searching for validation outside her own skin. With her father's lessons imprinted in her mind and her mother's courage echoing in her heart, she had seen the borders of her existence shift. The mountain path that had previously felt steep now transformed into a horizon bursting with promise. She had triumphed over silence. Your time to take action has come. Don't let this journey of personal growth end here. You need to subscribe now to the channel to continue following these exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. It matters. Comment below your thoughts about Sarah's powerful transformation and what it means to you. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this incredible conclusion. Remember, only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of uplifting each other. Don't wait even one more second to take part in this moment with us.